Our next speakers are going to be talking on ecosystem restoration and ecosystem restoration camps, and we're going to have John D. Liu introducing them. And the microphone is yours.
Hello, everyone. We have a panel today, and we're going to be showing some things first. So today we have my friend and colleague Willem Farida. We have Lauren Bond and Jonathan Kabat, who are the co-founders of the Hotlam camp. And we have Natalie Topa, and I hope we're going to have Ramis Kent, but he has sent something in, but we'll have to see. Okay, so I'm going to show a QuickTime film on my screen now from Hotlam camp. So this is the Hotlam camp, and I'm going to try to find that other thing in just a moment.
Hi, this is Jonathan and Lauren here. We're at our tiny house in Colorado, and we're really appreciative of John Liu, who's currently holding down the fort at Hotlam for us and having some technical difficulties with our video. So we thought we'd talk to you a little bit about ecosystem restoration camps and primarily our experience of jumping in and starting an ecosystem restoration camp, starting a eco-regeneration camp. And I think my strongest hope for this conversation is for everyone to understand that they can just get started. We don't have to be watching the experts. We become a spectator society, and I call it the zombie apocalypse, that we're all watching everything from afar, and we need to be engaged. We need to get our hands dirty. So wherever you are, wherever your feet are touching the earth, just feel those feet touching the earth and get started. So that's what we did. We got started.
Yeah, so we have 120 acres of land that we steward on the slopes of Mount Shasta in Northern California. It was clear cut most recently 22 years ago, and the replanting effort was largely a failure. So right now it's mostly cut. It's mostly like manzanita and bitterbrush, and so our first step is really managing the fire hazard because those are a big danger in California. So we're working on that first, and then our plan is to really regenerate the forest into a healthy ecosystem. So in many generations from now, we can have an old growth ponderosa fir forest like we do in some of the places that are in the upper reaches of the lava flows that are on the slopes of Mount Shasta.
Yeah, so we're adjacent to wilderness, and we think of Hotlam as being a wilderness camp. And we're also kind of sandwiched in between two National Forest Service plantations that have been repeatedly cut over 100 years. And what we notice is that those forests there, that area is not coming back. They've been kind of relegated to uneconomically viable brush fields. And our hope is that we can show that through regenerating the soil and supporting the mycelial network in the soil, that those trees can take root again and thrive. And we're noticing an interesting phenomena of the manzanita actually being nurseries for these young upstarts. And so now we have to free those small trees as they grow, but they've been protected by the manzanita. So think of those as being plants that come in earlier. And our hope is to be really participating in healing humanity's relationship with the biosphere, the rest of the more than human world. And I think that's where we're really listening deeply to some of the other speakers here who have had a culture much more recently that has been in dynamic relationship with all the living beings around them and have lived lightly on the earth. And I think that part of this effort for decolonization or de-domestication to unplug ourselves from what I think of as addictive tendencies toward living a life that requires the kind of consumption that we've become accustomed to, can slowly over generations be unraveled, and our nervous systems can be opened up, and we can be in relationship, understanding those relationships emotionally and understanding those relationships physically, sensing the rest of the world. I think John Liu's going to be coming back with us soon.
Oh, good.
And so that's our mission, our purpose,
Yeah.
is reestablishing humanity's relationship with the biosphere, and we hope that you can all join us at Hotlam.
I guess I grew up going to this camp in West Virginia, and tending the forest there, building trails and campsites. And for me, that was a big foundation of who I've become as a human being. I've always had a really deep relationship with the land. So my hope in the work to regenerate the forest at Hotlam, and the people that come and join us in this effort, that people can have that kind of relationship with the land that I think is our birthright. I think all of us really, that's what we're meant to be. We're meant to have that connection. And so our hope is to be able to facilitate that.
Yeah, I think that one of these real heartfelt longings for us is to have families be engaged as a family in these practices.
Mm-hmm.
That young people need to be engaged in these from the earliest of age, these restoration processes, these processes of reparation with the natural world. And this is what the ecosystem restoration camps movement, I think, is all about. It's about coming together and practicing, and then taking those skills back to your local communities and doing restoration work as a daily practice, as a way of living in deep reciprocity with the rest of the world. And so, yeah, it may seem sometimes like it's maybe a bit of a vacation, but it's really more of a retreat. And I used to talk about Hotlam being a retreat center for eco-psychology. And through my experience of studying somatics and studying other modalities of healing, I really believe it has to be embodied. We need to move from paradigm to embodied action. And so these ecosystem restoration camps are a place where everybody can take action around the world. I believe we're at 25 camps around the world and growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Are you with us, John?
Looks like John's back.
I think John's with us.
He's
see him
muted.
there. Well, I'm not
Still
hearing
muted.
his audio.
But
It's kind of exciting.
Hello.
To go. There's John.
oh, he's back. Okay.
Oh, so
there's
sorry, everyone.
representation for Hotlam.
I'm really quite worried. And maybe, Lauren, will you take over if I disappear?
Sure, you bet.
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess you didn't get to see the film. Shall I show it now?
Sure.
Okay, let's try it. So I'm trying to show the film from Hotlam. Here we go. So this is a little film I put together with Jonathan and Lauren.
I think every place is special. I grew up watching sunsets over the cinder cones in San Luis Obispo County. They call the Seven Sisters. And I think I just got used to watching sunsets and try to live where there's spectacular sunsets.
My name is Lauren Bond, and I'm here at Camp Hotlam on the slopes of Mount Shasta in Northern California.
You know, it's an emergent vision. It started for me about 15 years ago. when I became interested in contemplative practice in nature, I called it then, and was introduced to eco-psychology. And so the purpose of this place is really about how do we reestablish our relationship with the rest of the biosphere? How do humans come into balance and harmony in these times when much of the planet is under duress due to human activity?
Do you think that people understand this, or is it something that we have to grow the market for because they don't really know what this is about?
I don't know if it's about understanding. I mean, I think people are hearing more and more about climate change and about environmental degradation and the need for restorative practices and regenerative practices. And simultaneously, I don't think it's just a cognitive, oh, now we understand it. I think we actually have to have an emotional response that we take action upon.
There's a few different intentions here, but my first and foremost intention is to help people really connect to the land, to get to know this place. Because for me, having a relationship with the biosphere is the most important thing. And having that disconnection is really what has caused so much of the environmental destruction that we see. More specifically, this area was last cut 22 years ago, and the replanting, which was a monocrop of ponderosa pine, it was not taken care of, wasn't watered, and so a lot of the trees died. And this area is in desperate need of restoration. First of all, for mitigating for fires. There's a lot of really big fires here in Northern California. And also, by restoring this ecosystem, we can actually combat climate change in a way that just reducing our emissions isn't going to allow. And this is the first time that I've really felt hopeful that I can do something with my hands and with my expertise.
I would say that those particular trees are a pale comparison to what the climax equilibrium is here. They're tiny.
Yeah, when you go up in the wilderness, there are ponderosas that are 6-7 feet in diameter. And these are just a couple feet.
There are Native American people still here now, today, that are doing work to care for the land, using controlled burns, using clearing out forests, creating biochar, spreading the char back out onto the land. So I think it's really important to make sure when you're talking about Native Americans that you don't use words that indicate that it's a past practice, because they're still here. They still have a relationship to this place. And we're working to create relationships with the people that traditionally lived here, the Shasta people. Also the Winnemem-Wintu have a big connection, the Kurok people, and many others. So that's part of our goal here.
The way history is mainly taught is that those that subdued another culture and, committed genocide and stole their land, they somehow won. But in fact, there can't be winners. Nobody won. If you committed genocide, then whatever knowledge was embedded in that worldview is gone.
Would you like to say a couple more words, Lauren and Jonathan, or do you want to end?
I think we gave a little bit of an intro to Hotlam, and I think we'd like to engage in a conversation with everyone. So maybe we move to the next speaker for now.
Perfect. So, Willem, would you like to go next? Have you sent your material in, or are you going to show it from your screen?
I've sent my material in, so I think the organizers can put it on the screen now.
Is that ready, organizers? Mark, will you be showing it? Yes. So Willem Ferreira is with the Common Land Foundation. The Common Land Foundation is extraordinarily successful in preparing restoration projects around the world. So let's learn about that. Mark?
Hello, my name is Willem Ferreira. I'm the director of Common Land, which is an organization that is working from a holistic perspective with a systemic model on landscape restoration and integrated landscape management. Actually, what we've done over the last few years, when we started in 2013, is that we developed a universal model and approach that investors and farmers, as well as ecologists and governments understand. We call that the 4 returns model. Basically, what you see everywhere in the world is that landscapes are depleted, as you all know, and degraded. That happened over the last decades and centuries. And that model that we use today is, if you would summarize it in one sentence, is maximization of return on investment per hectare. If you add those 2 words, per hectare, you get degraded landscapes, deforested landscapes, pollution, monocultures, and at the end, an unsustainable situation from an ecological perspective. Nothing will grow anymore there. So, but the maximization of return on investment mantra is, of course, what has been taught at business schools for many, many decades and many, many years. So how to create a bridge that will involve governments as well as investors into the world of sustainability at the landscape level. That was the target or the challenge we had to face. And we did it we very carefully looked at the landscape level and realized that within a landscape and a degraded landscape, you basically find 4 losses. There is a loss of biodiversity, as we all know, caused by deforestation, by degrading land, by overgrazing, and all those things that are, that we know. There is also a loss of economic activity because people are leaving the landscape and migrate to cities, causing abandonment. People move away from the rural landscape, and you will find a social loss as well. Communities are falling apart. And meanwhile, there is a loss of financial capital. As people move away, also the productivity will go down. So if you look into those 4 losses and you turn those 4 losses into 4 returns, then you find a more balanced way of looking towards a landscape. And those 4 returns are, you need to first bring back inspiration. So the return of inspiration. And yes, we have indicators and you can monitor that. You need to bring back communities, work, jobs. We call that the return of social capital. And then, of course, a very critical one, as we all know, is the return of biodiversity. We need to create systems that regenerate biodiversity and conserve what's still left. And then you will come back to the return of financial capital based on sustainable business cases. So 4 returns at the landscape level will be, let's say, the new business model for a landscape. But how to implement that? To do that well, we need to go down into a landscape zoning approach. Each landscape is an ecosystem. And if you look from an ecosystem perspective and understand how an ecosystem works, whether that's a mangrove system or a rainforest system or a grassland system or a peatland system, you need to understand what the drivers are of the natural system. And if you understand that well, you can look from a landscape perspective at the zoning level. And we have divided 3 zones. So each landscape should design or think or work from a 3-zone perspective. So 4 turns are actually delivered by a natural zone, where nature is dominant, where you need to restore, let's say, the natural system. You have an economic zone, where people live, where there is infrastructure, where there are machineries and business. And you have quite often a neglected zone that's not very well known. We call it the combined zone. And that is the place where you increase productivity and increase biodiversity. And the combined zone is now the place where you can work on regenerative agroforestry systems and regenerative agriculture. Move away from monocultures into more diverse polycarbonate systems. So these three zones are the landscape. And then the last component of course, is critical, and that is time. Many of, let's say, NGOs, but also corporates and businesses work within a limited time frame. We all know that that is not realistic. So we have chosen for a minimum 20 years to work in a landscape to realize a 3-zone 4-turns approach, one generation. And that is what we call the 4-turns 3-zone 20 years model, if you can say. Now we wrote it down, we developed it, and of course we started to do it, to test it. And that's what we have done since 2014 in Spain, in South Africa, in Australia, in the Netherlands, and increasingly also in other countries. And what we've experienced so far is that, yes, we can set up companies, regenerative companies, that are completely transformative, but we need to start with the development of a local landscape partnership. That's not what we do, that's what local people are doing, and looking forward to establish that well. And this 4-turns 3-zones 20 years approach helps us to realize that and we use a co-creation process called the Theory U, based on an existing model that works pretty well. And so far, we are now able to set this up and make this happen. And that's where we are now. And we would love to share more about it in the sessions we will do together.
So thank you so much, everyone. And we're going to go to Natalie Topa, who works with the Danish Refugee, Danish Refugee Council. So Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from Nairobi. Good evening. Let me try to share my screen quickly and pull up my presentation. Okay, so my name is Natalie Topa. I work with the Danish Refugee Council, and I am the Regional Resilience and Livelihoods Coordinator for East Africa and Great Lakes. And increasingly, as we do more of this work in the region, there's growing demand in our agency, and so I'm increasingly supporting other countries. I do support Yemen, Jordan, and more countries are coming online. So I'm just going to go quickly through. Oops. It's not allowing me to, oh, wait 1 second, there we go. Okay, so just very, very quickly, I cover all these countries, and what I'm trying to do is bring permaculture-based design to the work that we do. My agency works in emergency response, durable solutions, and addressing the root causes of displacement, which is a kind of fancy terminology for saying that when there's an emergency or as people are in protracted situations for a long period of time, and even trying to address the issues that cause displacement is all within our remit. So around the world, but especially here in East Africa, ecologies are collapsing. And when that happens, they take livelihoods, stability, and security with them, and that can often be a major contributor to mixed migration. So what we're trying to do is work with communities. We've got teams in all of these countries. We work directly with communities and local governments, and refugees, returnees, internally displaced people, as well as the host communities. So we try to work with them to restore their agro-ecosystem, the landscapes within which they live and need to grow food, and which is the basis of their livelihoods. So we try to focus on increasing food, water, and energy security. And we also trying to bring some really restorative measures around groundwater systems, around perennial stability, and also energy security, because a major driver of ecological collapse here is deforestation for domestic fuel. So I'm just going to talk about the process that we've, basically what it looks like, what we do. We arrive to a community, or we're already working there, but in particular around these initiatives, we talk about the story of place, and we ask the local community, because they're the experts of their place, what did this place look like before? And what would you like it to look like in the future? And we try to find, the most elder person in the community to help recall and bring out of hibernation, what did this place look like? And how was life then? Was it better? And often you'll hear people were healthier, animals were healthier, and water used to come clean. It would flow from up to down, and it arrived clean. But now people have to go down to get water and use human energy to pull it back up, and it's often dirty. So we take time to have these discussions about what did this place look like. Then we break into teams, and we send teams, everybody has their team name, and we send them with buckets and pails, and what they do is they go out and we just start to collect all kinds of resources. That can be charcoal dust, ash, wood, these, mushrooms, different types of plants, and really looking at the ethnobotany and the whole range and profile of things that come from that landscape that people are still intact with, to help bring it out of hibernation as well. And really think about, wow, how all the wealth of resources that we have around us in our communities, or in our apartments, or in our houses and our systems. So it's really about taking an audit of all the riches that we have that we don't always think of, and think about how can we recover these resources. Then what we do is we show people a little tiny model farm, and so we show them this funny thing that's called an A-frame, which is a survey tool, a land survey tool to help us measure the natural contours and patterns of the land. We make these little model farms, and then we replicate what it would look like if it had mulch and stones for silt traps and things like that, and then we pour a bunch of water on it, and then over the course of days we just monitor and see how the soil retains moisture, how termites come in and start breaking down that carbonaceous matter to create what John refers to as the necrosphere. And then we show them how to actually make an A-frame using locally available materials. And not only how to make that, but how to use it. And so here, these are photos from Burundi on the left, and Turkana in Kenya on the right. And so here on the right, the community has measured the land contours, and we've started digging a swale, and this swale is for flood mitigation of the home of one woman named Regina. So after that, we spend a lot of time talking about the principles of soil health and fertility, water capture. And so around the house, we focus around household food security by establishing what we call perma-gardens. And perma-gardens are permaculture gardens, and some of the key features here that you can see are water and nutrient harvesting bioswales on contour that slowly allow water to seep in, towards those double-dug garden beds that are just below the swale. And so what we do is we take some of those resources from the resource mapping, and we pack those double-dug gardens full of all kinds of nutrients. So we're building in that long-term fertility into those garden beds, and we create a soil structure. So eventually it just becomes like a big, water storage tank with a garden on top. And when you do this, a very high fertility gardening, within 3 days we have germination of the things that we plant, like amaranth. So we take the same principles with the community, and now we take it out to the farm levels. We do have some people who are farmers, and so here, this is the farm of a woman named Denisa, and Denisa is in Kibondo, which is on the Tanzania border near Burundi, and she had major erosion gullies that were, taking water and nutrients and soil straight out of her system, and she was left with parched, organically starved soil. And so what we did is we create these, what I call security checkpoints, or it's a prison for water. We divert water from the gullies into long swales on contour. You can see we've planted them with bamboo trellises, and we have a baby food forest, which is indicated by all of those bamboo baskets. Each of those has a little baby tree in it. So we're trying to lock in this whole entire farm system with perennial stability of trees and other perennial plants, like passion vines that have now grown along those bamboo trellises, to get that to be a very, very nutrient-rich and very diverse food system. And in this next photo, this next slide, this is one rainy season later. That is Denisa with her baby, and within just one rainy season, all of this life, there was this biological uplift. So if you see on the right, those bamboo baskets are popping out of the green vegetation. Those are the same bamboo baskets that we had put in place just a few months before. So moving on to Burundi, here my own agency has funded this. We've got funding to test some of these principles, and here we're working on a mountain, which in French is colline or hill, and so we're doing this resilient colline project, and that you can see here that there's huge amounts of erosion. I mean, the mountain is just melting away, and what I want people to notice here is that it's the historic footpaths that become those hardscapes which start to accumulate water in terms of speed and volume and energy, and it really starts to break down, and you get those head cuts, and those footpaths which become hardscape, you know, from livestock and humans compacting that land, that footpath becomes a gully, and then the footpath just moves to the edge, to the edge, to the edge. But what happens is people's farms are being swallowed by these huge gullies. So what we've started to do is starting at the very, very top. The same reason why when you get out of the shower, you don't start drying your body by the feet, you start at the head. Same thing with our mountains. We want, we want to stop that source of water from accumulating and pouring down. So here on every footpath, on the trails where it was very, very rocky, we've just taken only locally available materials. Honestly, in this process, it's only knowledge that is the input. Everything else is locally available. So we've, gathered a bunch of stones, and every few feet, we've just really tried to slow down that water and get it to slow down, spread out, sink it into the soil, rather than, creating this bowling alley of flood waters. And by the way, on this hill, we've already had 5 people who have died from extreme weather events, including flash floods and landslides. So it's a life, it's a life or death issue. We also started to do what we call path water harvesting. So we know that those paths are, major delivery systems of energy, which becomes destructive. So what we want is for that water to go from destruction to production and turn those floods into food and fertility, and again, that biological uplift. So what you're looking at here are just 2 footpaths that, they tend to, crest off at one direction, and the drainage is on one side, and so we just direct that right into the nearby fields. We just, divert that energy into an on-contour situation. And so as Brad Lancaster says, we're planting the rain. Before we plant any food, any trees, any crops, we always plant the rain. So that's what we're doing here. We're pulling that energy out of the water. The other thing that we're doing, with path water harvesting here, is you can see we're you can see that footpath heading straight downhill. This is actually the same farm several months later. But that water, we're just diverting it right off of the footpath and into the farms. On this left-hand photo, what we've done is put that spillway from that swale into a tree system. So all that flood water will just gently make its way through a network of passive water harvesting smile berms, or individual water harvesting structures for the individual trees. And here as well. So we're just literally taking all of that energy and getting it into the farms. And within one season, we're seeing a massive boost of productivity, fertility, and people will tell you they've seen the soil change. It starts to get darker and blacker. We are adding also tons and tons of mulch and organic material, and we take the communities through the whole gamut of soil, intercropping, companion planting, perennial stability, and getting verticality and 3-dimensional systems into the farms and gardens. So here in Burundi as well, again, you can see how massive this erosion is with these gullies. And so we created a series of small strategies. It's a whole mountain, but the only way to move forward is with many, many, many small little strategies. So here we're doing gully plugging. We're making these little check dams. And these are low-tech, process-based interventions. What that means is that, the land will always, you know, have its own geomorphology. We're trying to aid in that process. We want to just mimic what would happen naturally if a log got stuck or boulders got, you know, churned up in a river and started to create an obstacle, an obstruction to have this buildup and recruitment of vegetation and life. Here's more gully plugging, you know, so again, we're only using locally available materials. We do plant these out with things like, you know, vetiver, bamboo, you name it, whatever's around and available. And on the far right side, you can see this was even, we hadn't even finished building this one yet, and a rainstorm came. But you can already see this this pulling up, you know, effect, which will create a terracing within the gully. So we're trying to slow that water down and again pull out that destructive energy from it. So the other thing that we do is we establish a mixed food forest. You know, part of the species recovery is identifying which are the indigenous tree systems that are being deprioritized because maybe they don't have a perceived commercial or ecological value. And so I'm a big stickler with our teams on listing out all the indigenous species and then integrating them with other tree systems. So in permaculture, and you know, we talk about food, fodder, fiber, fuel, fertility, and we can add also pharmaceuticals with an F. All of those Fs should be available in your food forest system or mixed forest system, so that in any month of the year you have something either to eat or to make or to sell or to use in some way. So the special thing about the way that we do it is that we design so that every individual tree has its own little passive water and nutrient harvesting structure. But it's not only the individual trees that can passively harvest water and nutrient. The pattern in which we plant them, like kind of on a fish scale pattern, allows that when one little tree berm fills up with water, we direct that water to the next one, to the next, to the next, to the next. So the spillover effect is captured throughout the whole pattern as well.
Nat?
And then, yep, I'm almost done.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so we do also use heavy equipment and earth-moving machinery. So this is in Kakuma. These are flood mitigation measures. A village was being flooded out here, so we do bring in equipment, and it's the same thing, working with natural contours of the land. And then this is the last slide. This is a project we're doing in Uganda, which is a large, it's about 20 million USD, funded by the Danish government. And we're doing road construction in 12 different districts of northern Uganda. And we're working with our engineers so that we're not only stopping at the road and the right of way for that corridor, but we're working with the community and with farmers to say, we're going to drain this off, but why don't we work with you to get that water off of the roads and into the adjacent farms so that we protect the roads while also getting that water into the farms, which are so parched and it's very needed. Oh, actually, this is the last slide. So this is an example. You can see this road was getting very flooded every single rain season, and what we did is work with Warren Brush on this, and we just took that flood off of the road and made a large contour dam. And by the way, in that tree next to the dam is a borehole. So we're simultaneously recharging boreholes. We're doing a lot of spring recharge and things like that. So in a big nutshell, we're doing a lot, and it's hard to condense it, but hopefully that gives you a snapshot of how we're working with communities to restore their agro-ecosystems so they have food security, but they're also buffered from climate extremes, because the work we're doing buffers from both flood and drought. So that's it, and that's our last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nat. I think it's really great. If you could just talk a moment, I think that we are facing a very dire situation globally, and we really need to act. And Common Land Foundation and the Danish Refugee Council and ecosystem restoration camps are all doing so much. And so if you guys have a moment, I'm sure that the organizers are going to tell us we're going to be out of time because we've had so many technical problems. But is Ramis there?
Greetings, everybody. My name is Ramesh Kent, and I am participating in today's webinar in the segment discussing the ecosystem restoration camps. And so just as a bit of a primer and introduction to me and some of my work, I just want to share a few images with you, mainly of just websites that describe some of the projects that I've had some involvement with or I am currently involved with. So let's get started. So this is an image of my website. I run a consultancy mainly through what I call ANTS, which is an acronym for agro-ecological natural technology systems. Oh, sorry, agro-ecological natural technology solutions. This is mainly an entity that I provide consultancy and training services through permaculture design courses, consultancy work as it applies to, again, agriculture, or addressing generally the problems of land degradation and desertification and all of the issues that are attached to that. So this is something, actually it's sort of a work in progress, but again, it just provides some insight into me and some of my background and previous work. But just to again highlight what some of that work has been. Here are a couple of efforts that I'm currently involved with. One of which is Plant for Peace. Plant for Peace is a UK-based organization. They have both a sort of a nonprofit and for-profit arm. The nonprofit arm is mainly concerned with providing a framework to facilitate areas that have been either involved in some kind of conflict or in a post-conflict situation, and mainly providing a framework for agriculture to serve as a means to sort of stabilize these areas that have been experiencing unrest. This effort has been primarily focused on Afghanistan. And again, the effort is hoping to establish some means for providing local food security, but also developing a framework for sort of a quote unquote sustainable, probably would be a better description, is a regenerative economic engine that's mainly based on horticultural crop production. So the production of fruits and nuts, and mainly the production of perennial species, and the creation of value-added products that are sold in Western markets. So this has been an effort that I've been involved with since 2011. There's some interesting recent developments in some of the work that is underway right now, and there are a few things that hopefully we'll be able to announce soon with this particular effort. Also, related to this, there's another effort I've had a chance to be involved with it's called Chavanch Farming. It's done under the auspices of an organization called the Hands Foundation, and also the involvement of its main funder, this gentleman Manoj Bhargava. Manoj Bhargava is the founder of a product called 5 Hour Energy. Anyone in the U.S. would probably be familiar with this product. If you go to any gas station or convenience store, or you'll find these small drinks, these drink bottles that are they're energy drinks. What actually is called an energy shot. And this gentleman has created quite a successful business with that product, and with a significant percentage of his earnings, he's actually been funding philanthropic work mainly in India. And one of the efforts he was hoping to fund was something that could address the concerns of, again, your average Indian farmer, and especially the poor and marginal farmers that have having a difficult time surviving. So this was a project that we helped get started. I and a couple of my colleagues that actually worked very closely in developing the nuts and bolts of the framework that has given birth to this particular effort. There's some really great detail to this that hopefully we'll have some time to discuss. You can see that a lot of the materials have been translated into a variety of different languages. So this is a great effort. I'm actually quite proud of. Also, the Ecosystem Restoration Camps Foundation. I've been involved with this project since its inception. I serve on the supervisory board. I've also done a lot of work in providing some technical assistance and guidance, specifically to the site in southern Spain on the Altiplano. So again, I've been attached to this since 2016, when John Liu and I had a chance to meet up in Italy and actually talk about what would eventually become the Ecosystem Restoration Camps Foundation. Lastly, I just want to mention that I also previously had served as a co-director of the Permaculture Research Institute, working alongside folks like Jeff Lawton and Daniel Halsey, and again, still work with those gentlemen. But this was something I had a chance to be involved with in terms of my formal service in that particular position since about 2015. PRI has sort of undergone a sort of restructuring, but again, a lot of the materials and information is still made available through its website. So there's more to tell. There's a lot more to discuss, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that during the actual discussion portion of the webinar program. So looking forward to it.
Let's just talk for a moment because they're gonna throw us off.
John, thank you so much. I think we have reached the time, but we'll continue the discussion.
Well, please join the discussion, Miguel, because what we have here are all action-based organizations, and we hope that many more people will join the Ecosystem Restoration Camps movement and help that go forward. They'll contact Common Land and find out how to participate in their larger programs, and we all want to work with the refugees and the homeless and the post-traumatic stress disorder veterans, and we need to learn from Nat how to do that. And come to Hotlum. You'll hear me play guitar.
Well, I heard you play piano at Co. That was fun.
This time we have reached the time. Thank you so much, everyone. If you want to say hi to the public, I don't know if you are.
I missed the conversation, Miguel. We need to have...
Yes, we say that we have reached the time now. We are in the green room now talking. I know we are still live, but we are, we have reached the time and we have a next presentation now. John?
Okay. Well, everybody? Anybody?
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We're really enthused to see grassroots efforts being combined with international organizations, and I feel like that's what the alliances need to be, supporting the locals and the grassroots efforts. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.